Welcome to another episode of Mind Power Meets Mystic. You are listening to me, Michelle Walters, the mind power part of our equation, and my co-host, Cinthia Varkvisser. We are getting excited for many, many reasons, including the fact that our 150th episode is coming up pretty soon. So Cynthia and I are still working behind the scenes on what that's going to look like, but it is pretty exciting to think that we have been at this almost 150 times.
I bow to you, Michelle, for that.
Oh, couldn't have done it without you, Cynthia. It is a team effort. There aren't all that many pairs of podcasters out there podcasting, but for those of you who've listened to us before, I think you'll recognize how Cynthia and I just love on each other and make a great team. And really, I think this whole thing is successful because of our partnership. So thank you for that, Cynthia.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So, what are we going to talk about today?
I thought we could talk about today things that we do when we're down.
Right.
And listeners and my friends will all know that I am pretty much an eternal optimist. But that doesn't change the fact that I have days like everybody has days where something's gone wrong or south or unexpected, and I just feel a little down. And so, without getting sort of too gloomy doomy about the whole thing, I thought maybe some of our listeners would be curious to know how Cynthia and I handle these things because, it's good to know that other people get down and what do they do about it. And it would be great to hear from you, listeners, with an email or a note sometime. What do you do when you're down?
Right.
So, with that, Cynthia, why don't you kick us off with the first thing for us to talk about today?
Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to say you are an eternal optimist. You are the consummate cheerleader. And for me, when I'm down, I'm not down for hours, I'm actually down for weeks. And it's really funny because I know that people don't see me this way. And it's important for everyone to know that of course we do. And the first one I want to talk about is business.
Business. Great. Let's
Business.
start there.
Yeah. And it's because it's near and dear to my heart. I love that I live to work. I just I live for house clearings and for readings and helping people understand their intuition and their inner magic and just letting them see how special they are. Sometimes it's super hard. It's hard for me to see how special I am when, you're busy working, on how special everyone else is. And let's face it, when we talk about integrity, it's it's not a fine line, but it can feel like a tightrope when we talk about integrity. What does the heart want? And then there's the strategy and the day-to-day logistics, which is not my forte. So well, let's admit
So,
it.
what about being down in business?
So being down in business, what am I doing different at the tender age of 58? Because I will admit that I've been at this plateau before. I've plateaued, and every time I get to this plateau, I I allow an event to help me make up my mind, right? And the event can be not as traumatic as it feels, but it feels traumatic. So this time I'm at a plateau. I'm really excited to shift. I know that this is the time to shift, and it's still uncomfortable. So this time I'm asking for help. I'm asking for
Ooh,
help.
look at that.
Right. It's really hard is that with readers and intuits that like me came up in the 80s, there was always a little bit of guardedness. Let's just be real. It wasn't that long ago that we had to be fingerprinted and vetted if we wanted to be legitimate businesses. My teacher, my Swami Mommy, really encouraged me to be a an ordained minister so that I could do readings, under that
In
umbrella,
that umbrella. Yeah.
that type of protection. She also talked about bingo, which I thought would be great, but it was about all those things. And so asking for help, being vulnerable, finding out who else is having challenges and and seeing that I'm not alone, I'm not in a vacuum, and listening, because listening when with my clients is one thing, but listening for me to work on my business is something
It's a whole different ball game. Yeah.
completely different, because it's not a it is emotional, and in our work we're compassionate but we're not emotional. So right, it's a very different thing. So I know it's a really long thing, but it's working, it's really
Well,
working.
that's good. I mean, that's what's important, right?
Right. What about you? How's it going for you?
Well, I try and stay optimistic about my business all the time, but there are days when things don't come together the way I think they're going to, or there are people who say, nope, don't need you, or whatever it is. And I have those feelings down too. And usually, my approach to what am I going to do is I first try and kind of remind myself that there will be another day, right? The sun's going to rise tomorrow, even if today didn't go very well. And then I try and think about things practically. And that's hard because I'm an emotional person too. And when business doesn't happen right, or when something goes wrong or you make a mistake or whatever it is, you can just sit there and swim in your fear and anxiety and disappointedness and all those feelings. Or you can take a little time to be there, which is what I allow myself. I wouldn't say that I get down for weeks. Usually with me, it's hours or days, but it could be a
Right.
few days, honestly. And then I try and figure out sort of how can I work smarter? How can I
Mm.
work smarter? How can I ask for help to double check something before I do it? How can I delegate more to someone else so that there's really two of us working on it as opposed to one? Or what is it I need to learn to ensure that this mistake, this lost opportunity, whatever it is, does not happen again, or I'm doing everything I can to prevent it from happening again. That's really kind of what I do when I get down about biz.
Right. Right. This is interesting because it's a special relationship with self,
Hmm.
right? And you have to have relationships with many others in order for business to run,
Well,
which
and it takes a certain amount of confidence, right? Because
right,
you can't do the things we do for people if you don't have a lot of confidence in what you're doing. And yet,
right,
even with all that confidence, occasionally things don't pan out, you know?
right, right. Yeah, the expectations part is really hard. Which is funny because in martial arts, it's not about expectations, right? In martial arts, we have a mantra, which is breathe, accept, flow, and don't be concerned with the outcome. And I find
Very
for
mindful.
it's really good because it's all about responding, right? Staying really present, staying very calm, and responding. Um, and as a black belt in business, I forget that it translates, right? There's training everywhere, right? It's you take 100% of who you are 100% of the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
So
let's
what
move on to the next one.
I was just going to ask you, what do you want to move on? What else, do you have challenges with?
Well, okay. I will say that sometimes I feel down in my body.
Mm,
And this is kind of a big umbrella because I've I've stumbled a couple times this summer.
yeah,
I mean, not major things. I haven't broken anything. But I have had a couple of stumbles, a couple of scraped legs.
yeah,
Um, I got bit by a crazy number of yellow jackets a few weeks ago. I went on a big weekend last weekend and got myself real worn out, and my kid had a cold, and so I was feeling stuffy. And when all of these things happen, when I feel down in my body, my typical reaction for me, what do? Is I rest.
mm,
I just rest. And there are people for whom the right answer is maybe to go out and be real active or play pickleball or do something like that. But for me, I give myself permission to not do other things, make a little less progress, and just take as much time as I can to rest.
I love that.
What about you, Cynthia?
Well, it my body actually ties in with my energy and my spiritual work, right? So instead of talking about what happens to me physically, I'm going to talk about how what happens to me energetically. So there are times where I'm just not feeling in alignment, and and then the physical comes in. It's go do a little go dance, do some exercises. Martial arts forms is also really nice. Um, so working being within my body is helpful because it reminds me just to be present, and of course having a really healthy body shapes everything else up. But it is funny that my body goes through the spiritual side, and so when I'm also feeling not in alignment spiritually, I do a lot of channeling, I do a lot of meditating, but I don't ask for messages for myself except for what's the theme of the day? So it's kind of like going to
Do it different.
yeah, it's universal therapy. So then I ask for a message, and if I'm even too lazy is not the word, but if I don't want to hear the mess, like I'm in a mess, pull cards, because then I can blame it on the cards, or the focus is on the cards instead of on the message. But the message is always really, really good. So those are the things that I do when I'm feeling out of alignment energetically.
I love what you're saying, Cynthia, because when I told you about my little stumble the other day, you said, "Oh, I can see what's happening. You're just popping out of your body."
Right. You
And
are. Yeah.
I believe you.
Yeah.
But it's I think it goes to show that there's a connection between body and spirit
Right.
that I don't know, that we've sort of been, many of us anyway, have been either taught to ignore or never taught was important or not taught that it was connected that way. Because you were one of the only people who would say, "Oh, yeah, the problem is you popped out of your body briefly, Michelle." I mean, I don't have any other friends that would say that to me. Um, and I think it speaks to how differently you look at the world. And that's one of the things I really value in you and our friendship is that you don't have to answer the question the way everybody else does. You answer it the way you see it, your guides tell you to see it, all that kind of stuff. And it's refreshing and wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This talk's actually making me feel a lot better. Not that I'm down today, let's just be really honest. But, I love that there are times we are each other's support system, which is fantastic. And we also know, hey, call so and so, what, as part of our support system. But let's talk about one last thing. For me, my family, so I've talked about business, which to me is mental, and we talked about spiritual. So my family is my huge emotional challenge. Uh, I have a lovely relationship with my family, and I'm so connected to them that I have a hard time separating um, my emotional value. So empowering the empath class, I have to go through it every single time, right? In my fight, flight, freeze, or fix. And I usually end up in the fix mode, so I'm trying really hard not to. But to go back, family strife. I love my kids. They don't live near me, so it's a little bit of a challenge when even though there are adults, they're still my kids. And also my partner, and I might as well put my ex-husband in there as well. He is my family. And then I've got my extended family. So what happens is I'm so connected to them that when they're having a bad day, it's really hard for me to detach. So detach and just be in my space, and it actually affects my productivity. So and we have gone through some challenging things this year, and so what I'm doing differently, and I am a work in progress, is, focus on myself. And that is my training. My training is focus on myself. When I'm whole, then I know how to be of service to my family, right? Um, and I like that you call it setting boundaries. I have a hard time saying that because of my kids. But I do set those boundaries of you don't have to answer the phone every time they call. You don't have to pick up. And the other thing that I do is, um, do the things that make me feel good. So I didn't do retail therapy, but I did go window shopping, and it was fantastic because you're just walking around. It was a beautiful day. I am not a mall rat, but I did have mall rat tendencies recently, and had a great time just wandering in and out of stores, and just saying, oh, I could buy this, but do I really want to? But just the thought that I could was really amazing. So those are the things that I do, that I've changed up for family. What about you?
That's good. Well, so I'm a very emotional person too. Right now, things are pretty stable, I think, on the family front. Maybe not perfect, but stable, which is something to be thankful for. Where things in my life, in terms of emotional things that have been sort of shifting around a lot over the last few years, really have been on the dating front. I think many of our listeners know that I had a wonderful, wonderful, dear, beloved who passed away in 2021. And it took some time to grieve for him. And I am optimistic that somewhere out there, there's a wonderful person for me to partner with and be with for many, many more years. I just feel like this is true. And it is not easy being on the dating scene in your mid late 50s. And recently was seeing someone, and the short form is it doesn't look like that's going to be a go. And so last week's episode with Leandra Fry was intensely helpful for me, but helped me kind of frame up some of my thoughts about dating and some of my thoughts about how to picture it and think about it and how to deal with disappointment, because there's disappointment left and right and center and up and down and in the fifth dimension too when it comes to dating. I try to remind myself that there are more fish in the sea. If I haven't met the right person, then I just haven't met the right person yet. And I try and think about, not necessarily instantaneously, but within a couple of days, what are the actions I can take? What are the actions I can take? How can I feel better about letting go of something? How can I get excited about a new possibility? And turning that into something. I earlier was showing Cynthia my latest creative solution for how to be thinking about dating, which maybe I'll save for another time. But you got to find ways to pick yourself up when you're down. And I think that's really important for everyone, including our listeners.
I actually love the subject of dating. And just so the listeners know, Leandra's episode is number 147. That's how close we are to 150. And the reason I think it's important is we've all, especially our listeners, we've all had heartbreak. And we've we've all had either an idea of who the one is or what the one is supposed to look like, and now we're looking at things a little bit more practically. I think is a good way of saying it, which doesn't sound romantic, but it actually really is. And the thing that I like about what's going on with you is that we have these great conversations, and I have to say, energetically, there's also, as we're working, there are timely things that happen. So the episode was fascinating to me because of your interest, the way you perked up and you had great questions. Well, you did. You had great questions, which created great conversation, right? And it was super important. The and you acted on it. You're acting on it, and that's the thing that
I'm
I
I'm
love.
I'm I'm gonna try and do this. I'm gonna try and do this the Leandra way and see how far I can get.
Well, you're already doing stuff, which is, you're action oriented. And that's the thing that I really love about the dating, especially since when we talk to a lot of our friends and other women that talk about dating, I'm not sure how much action they are actually in.
I think that's true. I think there are an awful lot of people, probably men too, honestly, Cynthia,
Yeah, I
who
agree.
who represent um represent themselves as being action takers on the dating front, but really aren't. You know, it's kind of like
Hmm.
a boyfriend who I had years ago who told me he was a hiker. And then we went off on a hike and he said, "Oh, actually, I haven't hiked in 6 years."
Right.
Oh, okay. So we have little definition differences of what does it mean to say you're a hiker. But, water under the bridge at this point.
I love that as you're dating, and I'll use family because they're very similar in certain ways, is we get to explore, like, okay, what is it that we like? What is it that is really important in our lives? And then we can go ahead and prioritize ourselves, and then see how important it is that our partner participates or not. I mean, there are a lot of places in my life where D doesn't participate, and my feelings will get hurt, but my feelings are get hurt just because I'm like, don't you want to spend time with me? I don't care if you think it's boring, you know. It's just a couple hours. But the truth is that she has a pretty good sense of like, hey, you know what? If I'm not happy, you're not going to have a really good time either. So, you know, bye bye, boo
And
boo.
I think that's something that maturity has really changed in me. When
Mhm,
I was 25, let's say, I wanted a partner who was going to be at my side at every family party, on every trip, on every whatever. And
mhm,
now I want a partner who's going to be there for some of them, but
mhm,
my expectations that my next companion is going to be 100% of everything or 150% of everything, it's
mhm.
kind of changed.
Right, right. The other thing that I like is that you travel. You like to road trip and you like to travel. We were just talking about the importance of having a passport. I also like traveling. I love the thought of immersing myself in cultures. I wanted to be a cultural anthropologist when I was younger, and there are times where Dee's like, "Hey, you know what? I'm not interested." And it's exciting for me to think like, who could I go with and have like a fucking
Mm.
bomb ass time, right? It doesn't have to be deep. And I really love that. And again, it's about that goes back into relationships, not dating or anything like that, but it's still a relationship thing. So
It's
uh,
absolutely a relationship thing.
yeah, and stuff to think about, like as like as we are in that thing about relationships, or yeah, with my family.
Anything else you want to add? I feel like we're pretty much complete on this.
Yeah, except yeah, my thing is I want to go to Indonesia next year.
Oh,
So
that
yeah,
sounds like super fun. I've never been to Indonesia.
I've only been once and it was awesome. I will say it was awesome. It was incredible. It was my family's 40th year from being away from Indonesia.
Okay.
So I didn't get to do it the way that I wanted to, but it was absolutely perfect because I got to see my family in a wonderful, wonderful way. I got to
Mm.
see their strength.
Dreamy. Well, I'm going to Alaska next year. Don't know what else is coming
Yeah,
up, but that's on the agenda. So, woo, woo, woo.
I know.
All right. I think that wraps us up. We are done with this week's episode of Mind Power Meets Mystic. I hope you've enjoyed this lovely conversation with me, Michelle Walters, and Cynthia Varkevisser, my podcast co-host. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on all the podcast players, and we would love to hear from you about what do you do when you feel down or anything else or what you want us to talk about. We will be back to our chakra series soon. Thanks for listening.
Bye.